This is Hino's Sport, bringing you that heat and that fire. We keeping the foot on the what? On the next. We keeping the foot on the what? On the next. Now let's get on to it, man. We have to talk about this. Errol the True Spence is going to Danny Garcia's Cherry Part 18. Let me say it again. Errol the True Spence is going to Danny Garcia's Cherry Part 18. Listen, y'all. You have a whole bunch of welterweights, right? And then there's Errol the True Spence. You have to look at the golf. You have to look at the distinction between what this guy brings to the table. This weekend culminated why the legend of Errol the True Spence continues. Let me say it again. This weekend culminated why the legend of Errol the True Spence continues. Look at Shawn Porter. Look at how he performed against a tune-up fight. See, the problem with lamest boxing fans, the problem with Rudy Poo and Plum Plum Brains, the problem with classic Dolce Troglodytes, the problem with ultra fanboys with the ultra fanboy rhetoric, they have a one-trick pony viewpoint on how to see the sport of boxing. Remember, the archaic viewpoint or the one-trick pony aspect of, let's just keep it boxing, let it keep it boxing, let it keep it boxing, let it keep it boxing. And we know boxing has politics, economics, and pugilism that's associated behind it. What is the economics here? Errol the True Spence is the big fish. He's the rock star. What is the politics behind it? You gotta come through him and you gotta see him. And what's the pugilistic aspect of it? He is the best boxer in that damn division. This weekend, when Shawn Porter fought Sebastian Formella, he was exposed. People are like, well, Shawn Porter, he dominated Sebastian Formella. What fight did you watch? What Shawn Porter showed how to dominate was his freaking cornrows. That's what he showed. We saw cornrows flapping all over the place. He lacks boxing ability. He's a second-tier welterweight. Shawn Porter, just like Danny Garcia, and you're like, how does this correlate? Danny Garcia's been doing the same thing that Shawn Porter's been doing. Danny Garcia fought Adrian Granados, and he told you guys he was back. Danny Garcia fought Ivan Redkach, and he was getting touched up. What you guys have to see with these second-tier welterweights, when you fight against the likes of an Errol Spence, he shows you the distinction and he shows you the separation between what he brings to the table and what they bring to the table. Now, how is all of this coming together? Look at the fight between Danny Garcia and Shawn Porter. Danny Garcia threw everything in the kitchen sink at Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter didn't get dropped. What you saw in that fight was a guy who beat Danny Garcia because he was aggressive, but he wasn't effective in his aggression style. See, the thing with Shawn Porter, and the reason why Shawn Porter is slowing down, is because of the bloated trauma that's associated between him and the likes of Errol the True Spence. Spence is slowing his career down. Basically, he's chipped away 5 years from his boxing career. This is why Shawn Porter, every fight, can't go out there no more since the Spence fight and fight aggressive fights. He should still be fighting his same style against a tune-up fight. Why is he trying to box him? Think about that. And the fight with Dennis Ugas, when he knew he was ultimately was going to fight Errol the True Spence, right? Prior to fighting Errol the True Spence, he fought Dennis Ugas. He had to box because he knew what was going to happen. He had to save himself. I'm saying all of that to say this. Danny Garcia has fought opponents just like Shawn Porter that is below the measure. It's below the candle. It's below the bar. Nobody holds these welterweights accountable. But Errol Spence comes back from a car crash and says, I'm fighting Danny Garcia, then I'm fighting Manny Pacquiao, then I'm fighting Terrence Bud Crawford. And reverse bias, aka detractors, aka panderers, instead of them saying, you know what? Even we have to say salute and give this guy a nod of respect. They're telling you now that Danny cherry-picking Garcia is going to beat Errol Spence. How? When you tell us that you are back because you beat Adrian Granados, that's no different than Shawn Porter beating a tune-up in Sebastian Formella. Y'all didn't catch that. You see how I drew everything together? Because we got to stick on context here. That is no different. See, this has nothing to do with Danny Garcia and Errol Spence. This video is more a keep that same energy, dog. Let me say it again. Keep that same energy, dog, to fight fans. They want Spence to do it all, but they don't expect much from these welterweights. Which one is it? Because we know you're going to pick the next opponent against Spence. We know that. Everybody he fights, you're going to pick that opponent. We get it. But it has to be justifiable in what you're picking here. Because you have a guy here that got out of a car crash and is saying, look, Danny Garcia, I want you next. You got Derek James that came back and said, there's nothing wrong with Errol Spence. He's good to go. He's perfectly ready to go. He's perfectly ready to do his thing. The sad part about all of this is we know it's a cash out slaughterhouse for Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia has not been focused on boxing for I don't know when. I believe he lost his heart and he lost his will when he got beat by Keith Thurman and he got beat by Shawn Porter. Well, that's perfectly fine and dandy. But Errol Spence is going to make sure that whatever little desire that you have left is going to be completely gone. Let me say it again. Whatever little desire you have left for the sport of boxing is going to be completely gone. Because he's going to bulldoze you. He's going to steamroll you. This is a one-sided beatdown. And if fight fans are being honest with themselves, they could see that, you know what? Everybody Errol Spence is fighting in the welterweight division, he is definitely better than the competition. It took you guys long enough to figure this out. Because you know you guys are always late to the damn party. But what are you guys catching here? Shawn Porter, what was his issue? Although he had aggression, he does not have the technical ability and the fundamental ability to close out his opponents to get the job done. Well, what is Danny Garcia's issue? His work rate is crap. Danny Garcia is flat-footed. And Danny Garcia throws Hail Marys. This is actually an easier fight for Errol Spence, man. You guys don't understand how easy this fight is. Spence is going to demolish Danny Garcia. It's not even close how this fight is going to end. It's a one-sided beatdown. As a matter of fact, it's a tune-up fight without it being a tune-up fight. Because Danny Garcia, truth be told, has been fighting nothing but tune-ups. Ivan Redkach is a tune-up fighter. Adrian Granados is not even a welterweight. When was Danny Garcia's last real live gate opponent? See, you guys don't ask yourselves these questions. Now he's going to go and step up the bar and fight Errol Spence. And then you have critics, the likes of a Kim, that reaches out their mouth and tells you that we don't know what kind of Errol Spence we're going to get. Are you kidding me? If Ivan Redkach can touch up Danny Garcia the way he did, what is Spence going to do? Think about that. If Adrian Granados was able to have marginal success before Danny Garcia, it took him 7 rounds to get this guy out of here, by the way. What do you think Spence is going to do? This is why, to me, this is an easy fight to call. Because we're talking about a megalodon shark versus a little guppy. Let me say it again. A megalodon shark versus a little guppy. Listen, Danny Garcia, we get it. You're into clothing. We get it. You got a clothing line. That's fine. Chris Algieri was regressed into a chef. Phil Greco was regressed into a YouTuber. Chris Van Heeten, we haven't heard from him since. Samuel Vargas, another guy that they were talking about, we haven't heard from him since. Samuel Barrera, another guy they were talking about, we haven't heard from him since. Lamont Peterson was officially retired from the sport. Do you guys see a simile here? You guys see a thing that's being drawn here? When you fight Errol Spence, you're no longer the same fighter. Mikey Garcia completely left PBC along with Manny Pacquiao. Because Manny Pacquiao didn't want to fight Spence. And Danny Garcia, well, we see the type of fighter he is now. Got beat up in a charity fight against Eric Morales. I mean, come on. A guy that's been retired so many years later. This guy was beating him up in a charity fight. This is what happens when you go 12 rounds with Spence. Danny Garcia is also going to learn this as well, too. When you fight 12 rounds with Spence, you're not the same fighter. Let me say it again. When you fight 12 rounds with Spence, you're not the same fighter. This is a cash-out slaughterhouse. And Danny Garcia will get his proper retirement. That's the cold-hearted, that's the unadulterated, and that's the cutthroat truth teller fashion. This is He Knows the Sport. Check it out.